Shalom, shalom, shalom. Giving honor and praise to the Creator, maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael. I may be looking a little different. I don't have my head covering, so I grabbed what I could as far as, covering my head in that particular regard. So it may look a little different, but it is what it is. This particular speech, if you will, is not going to be long. I hope nobody takes offense to it. I hope nobody is displaced by it. And I do know and understand that some will agree, some will disagree. So be it. Now, if you look at the title, I put black man because I know good and well, brothers and sisters, that this pen is the color black. You understand? My skin tone is the color brown. That I'm very well familiar with. You understand? But once it comes down to this particular thing and trying to reach out to the people, you might have to speak the language that the people understand and not always try to quote unquote speak too deep to where people don't understand and follow along what you're saying. One of the things that people said about my book, the first one, Egypt Talk and Writing, is that it's in simple language for the average person to understand. So I was like, okay, cool. You know what that is with that. Now, this is called a black man saying we from the East addresses the, how you pronounce it? Autochthonous people of North America. All right, now let's look. You have here the general standard map of North America. Now, of course, this doesn't include fully Canada and the fact that Mexico is actually part two of what you call North America. All right. Now, South America that you begin to see right here is not part of North America. All right. See, this is not part of North America. So it's called South America. Now, we know good and well that either in the 1700s, there's a document speaking about a people called African Americans. And then you had it in the 1980s when the guy Jesse Jackson made the popular term, or that term popular. Now, as an Israelite, of course, I don't subscribe to the terminology African American. That's obvious. You understand? However, when I am speaking about my people, I am not only talking about they who are deemed to be African American. I'm speaking about those who are called Jamaican, Bayesian, Guyanese, Trinidadian, Afro-Brazilian, Panamanian, Honduran, the people from Belize, the people from Berbice, the people from Guyana. You understand? So when I'm speaking about my people, that's what I'm talking about. In addition to the people that is deemed to be called African American. Now, one of the things I want to address real quick is that there is no way that one can say that slavery did not happen in what you call, in political terms, the United States of today. There's documentation in Congress on it. There's documentation and evidence that you can see in signs when you walk down in Philadelphia, where they speak about in this year slavery is such and such and such and such. You have it to where Virginia has a place called Jefferson Davis Way. Jefferson Davis was a slave owner. You understand? In Brooklyn, New York, you have what they call James Madison High School. James Madison was a slave owner. Now, I want to sit there and emphasize, brothers and sisters, that Abraham Lincoln, you know, the president that was in the 1860s, was not what you call a black man. Every black picture that you see of Abraham Lincoln is something that the other Europeans made to try to make an insult of him, as if a minstrel show, you might say. You understand? As been pointed out in other videos, when Lincoln took office, one of the first letters given to him was, excuse my language, you ain't nothing but a goddamn nigga. His wife, Mary, was a white woman. His children were what you will call, in layman terms, pure white. So we have to know and understand that the pictures that is given of Abraham Lincoln as a black man is not accurate. All right? So he was known, brothers and sisters, to fire white men, such as a guy named McClellan and a guy named Fremont, who freed black people during the 1860s. He fired them and then put the black people that were freed by them back into slavery. So that's something we want to point out for edification purposes. All right. Not going to be too long. Not going to be going into many citations, but I want to go into some citations. Because when one is saying, or anyone is saying, that they are, what's that word again? Or Autochthonous of North America, and some saying that we are from North America and no place else. That's something that has to sit back and be thought about and analyzed, knowing good and well that throughout the length and breadth of the peoples on this map here, you find evidence of black people or people of color here, 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 and throughout places such as Malaysia, as was pointed out by the guy Indus Commit Kush in his book called What They Never Told You in History Class. So that's something we want to point out for edification purposes, to try to marginalize black people. And I'm not only talking about Bnei Yisrael or the children of Israel. I'm talking about all of the descendants that come biblically out of the line of Noah. That is to say, from Shem and Ham mainly, to try to sit there and marginalize them to just say, oh, okay, this right here is where we come from, knowing good and well that there were people being transported or that traveled on their own volition. People migrated and traveled on their own. For instance, look at this. For instance, you have what is said to be the shape of Africa. Of course, we know it's not the actual shape. It's about a bit longer there and a bit thinner up around there in the western part, but neither is that the point at this particular part. You have people here before Columbus that traveled to the place over here. That was pointed out by the guy, Ivan Sertima, in his book that came before Columbus. Now, here's something I want to ask, and that's this. To the people who are saying that they are indigenous, or what's the word again? Autochthonous to what is understood and said as North America and no place else, and so forth and so on, right? And I'm going to ask first in Hebrew, not being disrespectful. Ma Lashon Ka. Ma what? Lashon tongue ka yo. Ma Lashon Ka, what's your language? What's your tongue? Because every people have a native language. So when the Europeans came over and colonized, they didn't meet people that were speaking Portuguese, Spanish, French, English, Dutch. You understand? So that's something to be pointed out for edification purposes. Now, as an Israelite, we're saying that our language is Hebrew, our true land is the land of Israel in the east, and our culture is the Torah. So if you're saying that you are already in your home, and that you're already in your home, and that you're not outside of your home, then you must be able within your own home, where it is said, as a man is the king of his own castle, that you must be able to sit there and explain what is your language. We have Israelites that are out there who don't care about Hebrew, and then there are Israelites who do care about Hebrew. All right, so that's something we want to point out in that particular regard. And that's not a light matter, because you can identify a people according to the tongue and the language that they speak. And that's how, when you see the scarabs in ancient Egypt that go all the way to ancient Canaan about the Hyksos, they are saying in archaeology and sociology and in etymology and in linguistics that they are able to take it lexically by saying, wow, these people must have belonged to an Asiatic group. When you look at some of their names, such as Yaakov Har and Baalat and so forth and so on, it seems to be that these people who invaded Egypt, later on known as the Hyksos, would have been from what you call Western Asia. And they glean that in part, brothers and sisters, pardon me for that. They glean that in part, brothers and sisters, by looking at the scarabs and reading it and deducing from a language. So therefore, we know good, well, and understanding, if you're saying that you're indigenous to this continent here, or this country here, North America, or as the what is called, the Autochthonous and so forth, that means you should be able to sit there and state what your language is, even if you don't know what your language is, even if you don't know how to speak it, even if you're disconnected from its roots. Does it have a name? That's the question. Was the name changed to something else? So here's another point in speaking about this matter, because I've been watching videos and seeing certain things concerning this. Now, as stated, a black man, myself, a black man who says we from the East. Why is it that the videos that's being presented from those who say that we are indigenous to North America, correct me if I'm wrong, seem to, at least to me, not that I watched all of those videos, but it seems to be going against and bashing those who say that we come from the East, those who say that we are the Asiatic black man, who say that we are the people of African descent, if you will. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're saying that you are indigenous or what, autochthonous to North America, would not your argument be against the Mongoloid people on the reservations who have the casinos? Do you go and speak to them or against them or expose them? Because see, we as Israelites, we expose the so-called Khazars. That is to say, the real Khazars, the so-called Jews. We have books on it. We stay citing even a European Jew by the name of Stephen Jacobs who went on it. We stay citing the aspect of a guy, may he rest in peace for whatever it's worth to him, named Autochthonous, who wrote the book called The 13th Tribe. Autochthonous did not commit suicide. That's another subject. You understand? So we citations, we make citations and quote citations and make books and make videos going against the so-called Jewish man. Because we are saying if we are the true house of Israel, that the European Jews that you see in Crown Heights, that you see in Williamsburg, that you see in the land of Israel today are imposters. So we have a contention with the European Jews, to be candid on that. You understand? We have a contention with people saying that they are the Hebrews when they come out of Europe, when the Hebrews, we already know to a great extent, coming from this area right here, right, fled into this area here. And we teach that fleeing into here from Greek and Roman oppression was then shipped over here. That's part of our main teachings. That during that time, brothers and sisters of the Greco-Roman Empire, that you had it to where the Israelites fled into places in Africa, such as when you get to the aspect of the Elephantine Island, the Jews, that's to say Bnei Israel, or in particular, the southern kingdom that was there, or the kingdom of Judah that fled there. All right, the Bible speaks about that in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 44. The book of Second Maccabees, chapter 1, speaks about the aspect of the Jews, that is to say, the people of Judea or Judah that was living in the land of Egypt. All right. The book of Zephaniah says about the Israelites being scattered beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. So if you already know that Ethiopia, in biblical terms, did not only denote the colonized, if you will, land called Ethiopia today, but included a great landmass, right? You can have no reason to not understand that the white and the blue Niles that come together and then flowing north through the Sudan and dump into the Mediterranean out of Egypt, you know good and well that those are the rivers that the book of Zephaniah is talking about. So in the Bible, if it says that the children of Israel is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, we can see biblical evidence, a document, if you will, all right, about the Israelites being scattered in Africa. See, we can't say that we are, what's that word again? Autochthonous or what have you, or indigenous to just one particular place. If we're saying that we're the Israelites, unless we're saying the land of Israel. But if you're saying you're an Israelite, it says in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 23, that your origin goes back to the land of Chaldea. According to Godfrey Higgins in his book, Anacalypsis, the Chaldeans were originally Negroes. So if Chaldea is adjacent to Babylon, which is in southern Iraq, how can you say that we then, all black people, or can say that's in North America, or indigenous, or to North America, or autochthonous, or so forth and so on, as if to say we're not migrants, or so forth and so on. That would mean that you would have to have a story of your creation coming out of North America. Because see, if you do it like for the way the Israelites do it, they're saying that the biblical Garden of Eden is in what you call Western Asia. All right. So, and it names the rivers that came up out of that river, pardon me, out of that garden. You understand? It mentions the Hiddekel, the Gihon, the Tigris, and the Euphrates, those 4 different rivers. All right. So you can look on a map of today and see, okay, that goes by the land of Assyria, the Assyrians. And then you have the aspect of the Gihon, which leads you, brothers and sisters, to, as we spoke earlier, the aspect of the Nile. So these are things, brothers and sisters, we want to sit there and emphasize and talk for edification purposes. Now, I already asked the one question about the language. If you're saying that you're indigenous to North America, what language do you have? Now, that's something we want to point out in that particular regard. Or just asking a question, as stated, people may like it, people may dislike it, people may agree, people may disagree. But this is something that is being presented, as I stated, from a black man, all right, to the people saying that we are indigenous to North America. You have ultimately, correct me if I'm wrong, then forgot or did not care to mention all the black people that's in the Caribbean, and certainly the ones that's in what you call South America. Because I'll go so far to say that there's more black people in, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, Indiana, than there are in New York City. And there's more black people in Brazil than there is in any 50 states of the United States combined. So are we to say that the black people or the negritos of Brazil, do they not count? Do they not matter? You understand? If we were to sit there and say, perhaps then do the people of Haiti not count? Do they not matter? Are we to sit there and say the people of Trinidad and Tobago do not matter, or do they not count? You understand? When you speak about, some speak about the aspect of Turtle Island, does it include what we call the Caribbean of today? Were the ancient Caribs and Arawaks part of the tribes that belong to what you call Turtle Island? So these are just things that just being asked for edification purposes. All right. Now, as stated, I know the shots going to come back by saying, well, Israelites saying they're Hebrews, but they don't know Hebrew. That's that particular brother sister problem. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 9, if you wise for yourself. So we already know in our camps what we teach, that don't take my word for it. Go research it yourself. Go check it out yourself. We've been teaching that in any kind of camp for the most part. So, at that point, it's up to the individual what happens at that point. Now, I just want to read a couple of citations that come from different sources, all right? And I have no problem making a citation that might have been written from a white man, because unless you can let me know what your language is as an indigenous person of North America, you're already speaking English. The shots that you make against others are already in English. And here's the other question I want to ask. Where are the presentations, the books that are written by those who say that we are indigenous to North America and no place else, and so forth and so on, going against those who are claiming your identity, if that be the case on the reservation? Don't come at us who say we come from the East, because I'm not trying to wear your coat. My brother saying who we are Iroquois, my brother who was saying that we are part of the Apache, my brother who's saying that we are the original Seminoles. I'm not trying to wear your coat. I'm not claiming Iroquois. I'm not claiming Seminole. I'm not claiming the Blackfoot. I'm not claiming the Apache. I'm not claiming the Chickasaw. I'm not claiming, you understand, so forth and so on, the Cherokee and so forth and so on. So to try to come at a said black man saying that we come from the East and you're trying to take shots at that, I'm not your enemy. I'm not the one claiming the identity that you say you are. You may want to go and talk to the people on the reservations who have the casinos. Talk to them. Just like we, the House of Israel, we sit there and make videos, and I'll put it inside the description about how we get at the rabbis in Hebrew. Kasher anaknu omrim b'nei Yisrael shakori. Enenu kushim, enenu hakami, anaknu b'nei Shem ben Noach. Wa anaknu omrim anaknu am segula wa nakala el Eloheinu. That's how we sit there and come at the aspect when dealing with the so-called Jews. And it's not to be haughty, belligerent, arrogant, or anything of that sort. I might be speaking with emotion. I might be in certain sentences run on or redundant, but these are just things that we're just trying to ask for edification purposes. Because you can't take shots at any group of people, regardless of any race, understanding, school of thought, what have you, and then turn it right around and make another video sitting up there talking about how can we come together. You done sat there and said, I'm a liar. I can't sit, you understand, not to blow up somebody's name, Rabbi Meza, after I, on my channel, made a video exposing him and then say, Rabbi, how can we come together? I can't do that. So the point I'm saying this, keeping it 100, keeping it a me'ah, which is 100 in Hebrew, is this, right? all the videos that I can say that I've seen seem to have been geared against those, such as myself, who say that we come from the land of the East. See, now let me show this map again, right? Because you need to take shots or make videos about the people in the reservations, like we take shots and make videos and even write books and cite books written by who have you against the Khazar Jews, because we're saying that the European Jews that you see are imposters and they're wearing our coat. See, we are not wearing the coat of the people who say that they're indigenous to North America. We're saying we came, as Israelites at least, through the continent of Africa. Some saying that Israel is in the continent of Africa. That's not my argument in this particular presentation. We're saying that this here is not our homeland. We're saying that we originated from this land over here. So here's my argument in this too. If you're saying that what you refer to in many cases as Turtle Island or North America or the United States in certain cases, right? If you're saying that this is truly where you come from, and some saying no place else, and I happen to actually live in part of here, but I'm saying I come from here, but you got people down in Oklahoma with casinos and everything like that down here who's wearing your coat, who you're saying are part of the Mongolians that came over in certain cases from the Barren Strait or wherever else people say they come from. That's a whole nother argument. But I'm not wearing your coat. So you may want to direct your energy toward those so-called Native Americans that you see in the casinos and the people that you see on the reservation that get government grants, that get reparations. That's who you might want to take your videos to. You might want to direct your energy toward that, because we, the House of Israel, have drenched YouTube. We have sat there and went all over different publications, brothers and sisters, to sit there and talk about the aspect of the European Jew wearing our coat and he doesn't deserve it, that he's an imposter. You cannot say, while we, yes, we do live and reside in this place right here currently, right, as Israelites or as Black people, as we're saying, right? We're saying one more time that we come from here. You're saying that this right here is originally yours. So if I'm saying I don't belong and I'm not claiming what you're saying originally is yours, but I come from way yonder over here, why are you making 10, 15 or so videos against people such as myself who say we come from over here? I don't want none of this part right here if I don't have to. I'm currently sitting up there thinking to move to a better state and then eventually trying to sit there and get to the east if I can sit there and do so. That's one of the goals that many Israelites are thinking about now. So if we're saying, and some Israelites have, such as those in Demona, who have actually from places in North America packed up and left, or sometimes didn't pack, just left, and went over to the lands of the east. Some people staying in Ghana, some people staying in Nigeria, some people staying in Cameroon, some people staying in different parts, and then migrating over to the land of Israel in certain cases, right? We are relinquishing ourselves, not through the court system by taking the social security card and the birth certificate, going down to Washington, D.C. and paying money to be sovereign while still under the hegemony in this society that you see right here, or better yet, right here. We're saying, bye-bye, we don't need your passport, we're done. When the Israelites that left, for instance, out of the, Chicago and Detroit, went to Demona, they ripped their passports up because they had no intentions of coming back to what they called Sheol, or Eretz Bili'al, or AKA Hell. They had no intentions of coming back. So they ripped their passports up. You understand? So looking at it and knowing the history, in that particular case, that's something we want to point out for edification reasoning. All right? So the two questions so far, all right, wrapping this up, is what's your language? Saying that we are indigenous to North America. And why is it that it seems that most of the shots, most of the attacks are made against those who don't even want to even be in here? When you get right down to it, some of us feel stuck in here, jobs, some of us stuck in here, family, so forth and so on. But if you give the average Israelite a place and a will to sit there and leave North America and go east, most would. Some Israelites, and I'm not going to mention who or what camp, are saying that you have a lot of Israelites that's going from the north to the south, and then going from the southeast to Africa. Just like we're saying that we came through Africa and was dropped off in the south, and then we migrated to the northern states of the United States. So it's like a reverse back. That's what some Israelites are saying. You understand? So your energy, your debates, your videos, your writings, what have you, you might want to direct it toward another place. Because if this is truly your land, and we're saying as Israelites, for instance, that we don't want no part of this and we up out of here ASAP, then you don't need to sit there and argue with me. You don't need to sit there and try to take shots at me. Because I'm not the one, as stated, I'm not the one who's your enemy. I'm not claiming your identity. I'm not claiming, like I said, the Micmac, the Chickasaw, the Apache, the Shoshone. So whoever you truly are, you might want to sit there and debate or get at those who are claiming your heritage, if this is your true heritage in that particular aspect. Your energy is being geared, and I'm gonna try to sit there and not try to be slanderous. Your energy seems to be geared, brothers and sisters who do those videos against those who say that we come from the lands of the East. Maybe by the white man. Why do I say such a thing? See, many white historians and scholars, right, have sat there and spoke about the European or the white people's guilt and involved in the slave trade, which we're going to get into before this closes out. So, as Hakimat Habuti, who was a person who wrote a book called Black Men Obsolete, Single, or Dangerous. The guy's name is Hakimat Habuti. And he wrote a book that stated it's called Black Men Obsolete, Single, or Dangerous. Right? And he stated when he was on a talk show with the lady Shahrazad Ali that he was not trying to give the white man a pass. I think it might have been a Donahue show or the Sally Jesse Raphael show back in the 1990s or whatever like that. He stated essentially that he's not trying to give the white man a pass. So I'm asking this. When you're saying that there was only 500,000 people brought from Africa to what you call North America, only 500,000? Let me tell you something. That's 500,000 sons, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, grandparents. So when you say the word only 500,000, I have to sit back and ask, what are you talking about? And what will make you say such a statement? What is the point in even making such a statement? What is the reasoning behind such a statement? How do you gain anything by such a statement? By saying, as some have said, it was only 500,000 slaves brought over to the United States, to North America. Only 500. You know, the part that I'm stuck on is when people say only. Now, I remember going back and forth on Facebook with somebody about this. And the citations that you're going to hear me say is where I was getting my sources from. And the response that I got from this person shows you the reason why I say that that kind of energy by some of them is given by the white man. And here's why I say such. Okay, let's look, for instance, brothers and sisters, at this here. Documents of West Indian History by Eric Williams. Now, he was a black man. Never met him. May he rest in peace. He passed away when I was a baby. He was the former prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, let's look in this book right here, for instance, on page 142. It says this, in part, no Negroes, no sugar. So let's see what it says here in part. This is by a guy named Gonzalo Fernandez de Oviedo, and he lived in the 16th century, that is the 1500s, right? It says, there are so many Negroes in this island, that is to say the island that is called Haiti/Dominican Republic of today, then called Hispaniola. There are so many Negroes in this island as a result of the sugar factories that the land seems an effigy or an image of Ethiopia itself. Now, did you see right there, highlighted there is the part I just read. Now, Hispaniola, which included today what is understood. Yeah, I know I'm not the best rapper once it comes down to this. For those who joined on, or for those who want to wonder why I got this on my head, sidebar, I couldn't find my head covering that I normally wear, and I wanted to cover my head in teaching, so I just threw this on. All right, so now the citation in that particular one, right, that you see right there, it says that there's so many Negroes in this island, speaking of what you call today Hispaniola, or what was called then Hispaniola, now referred to today as Haiti and the Dominican Republic, right? That it represented or is like an effigy of Ethiopia itself. Now, we already know Ethiopia, as pointed out by Ibn Serdema in his book entitled African Presence in Early Europe, right? That Ethiopian ops is the Greek terminologies meaning burnt face. So, looking at it like that, no Negroes, no sugar, that there's so many Negroes in this island that it seems to be an effigy, that is to say, what resembled something or something that was made to look like something of Ethiopia itself. See, the Europeans, in this case, the Spaniards, right? They knew where their captives came from. They knew that they shipped them over from the continent of Africa to the Western Hemisphere. That's why that guy in the 1500s, and I emphasize the date because those who want to take shots against Israelites are saying, oh, you're citing the King James Bible in the 1611, and that was used to make the people slaves. But people were being enslaved of our people, once you understand who our people are outside of just this land right here, all right? That was happening before the King James Bible came out. See, that's why in certain cases, dating and knowledge and understanding is important. All right. So I wanted to go over that part right there. Here's another aspect I like to sit there and get into. All right. Now I'm part of the cover, but this book is called Black Cargoes. Part of the cover. All right. His Black Cargoes is written by William Cowley. Now on page 17, right, in this book, not being funny, I had this book for, I'm what, 38 now? I had this book since I was 14. So 38 and 14, I had this book for 24 years. Could be explained why it looks like this, or the fact that the brother didn't take care of it. One of the two. All right, so let's look at it. It says this in part. Edward Long, which is the name of a person. Edward Long, who wrote a book called History of Jamaica, 1774. Calls them, meaning the black people there, haughty, ferocious, and stubborn. He mentions a slave uprising in which 33 Coromantese, most of them who had been newly imported, murdered and wounded no less than 19 whites in the space of an hour. The Jamaica House of Assembly, in describing a series of slave revolts during the middle of the 18th century, reported that all these disturbances have been planned and conducted by the Coromantese Negroes, who are distinguished from their brethren by their aversion to husbandry and the martial ferocity of their dispositions. So, in other words, they're saying that the Coromantese Negroes are different because they are distinguished by their aversion to husbandry. Husbandry meaning like planting and dealing with the garden and everything. Those kind of black people that they were newly imported were not trying to sit there and yes sir, I'll pick the sugar cane, I'll plant the no, they wasn't going out like that. It says in the space of an hour, they, according to this, murdered and wounded no less than 19 whites in the space of an hour. That was recorded in the 1770s in the island that we call Jamaica of today. Now, I want to go in this same book, right, citing a citation, and this is, brothers and sisters, on page 62 of this book, and it says the following, all right? In the first half of the 17th century, that is to say the 1600s, New Amsterdam, rather than New England, was the principal North American slaving center. New Amsterdam is what the Dutch was in what we could now call New York. All right, let's go on. In 1621, all the Dutch private slaving concerns were incorporated into the Dutch West India Company. By then, Holland had firmly established herself on the Guinea coast, and the West India Company had the full support of the government. From 1619 to 1623, the company carried 15,430 slaves to Brazil alone. In 1625, the first slaves were landed in New Amsterdam, that's to say modern day New York, all right? And in 1652, the Dutch ship owners in the New World were authorized to trade directly with Africa. To trade directly with Africa. So what are the two places mentioned in that paragraph that was read? Was Brazil and New Amsterdam. See, the Portuguese in history was fighting the Dutch back and forth over the control of what we call Brazil of today. Brazil is documented as ending slavery legally in 1888. In North America in 1865. So when you find people that's deemed today called black, tagging along with somebody else, online or offline or whatever, saying, I've asked my grandmother, and my grandmother told me that we were not slaves. And then you got a bunch of people today that will be deemed Negro or black. Yeah, we were slaves. Son, you were slaves, B. Our ancestors, unfortunately, were slaves here. Don't think so. How do you get the name Johnson? Who the is John, man? Robinson. Who the is Robin, man? You understand? Peterson. Who the is Peter, man? So yes, the names that we have, such as which runs in my family as Hutchinson, who is Hutchin? What is that derived from? You can't say, brothers and sisters, while walking with a government name, as we already said, that's my government. You can't have that and then say that you are part of the what? The natives or the Autochthonous, meaning that you didn't migrate from another place, you didn't come from another place, you're indigenous to this place. Brothers and sisters, let's go over history in regards with Israelites. You understand? Because you had Israelites during the time of the Greek Empire that, yes, they had Hellenized Hebrew names, Maccabeus, Judaeus. You understand? Alvaran, for instance. The Maccabees, if you will, when you go into the book of the Apocrypha. But they were still calling themselves by Hebrew names, certainly among themselves. They were still talking about the laws of the Torah and the Elohim of the Shemayim, the God of heaven. They were still speaking on that. As a matter of fact, Maccabi is a Hebrew terminology. Mikamoka be'elim, the holy name of the Most High, with the Yod there. You understand? Who is like unto thee among the gods, O Creator. That's what Maccabi means. So while the Greeks were still doing Hellenism, even among the Israelites, there were some Israelites that were still holding on to their own thing. You understand? So how did you lose in your own land, in your own society, where you know everything better than the captor and the invader? How did you lose yours? Who sold who out in order to sit there and get your records to be taken? This is what we want to point out, because in the book of Josephus, in regards to the Israelites, for instance, it says that the Israelites were not in their land to a great extent, and the Romans invaded the temple and tried to burn all the Israelite records that they could. You understand? Michael Grant, he wrote a book called History of Israel, and he stated that in the era of the 1st century CE, all right, CE said as AD by some people, but we refrain from the AD terminology, that the Romans tried to annihilate as much as they could the seed of David. You understand? You have people in Ghana today that lay claim to be of the house of the seed of David. Did you know that? Did you know that there are people in Ghana, West Africa today that say that they are the descendants of what your Bible speaks of as King David? Did you know that? Yes, yeah, they exist. You understand? So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. So as this book here, Black Cargoes by Daniel P. Mannix and William Cowley pointed out, There were black people that were newly imported into Jamaica as slaves, and that they were killing their oppressors. They were what the word says, because I want to cite it correctly according to this book here, right? It says no, it's on page 17. Sorry. It said what happened with the Coromantee ones. That they murdered and wounded. That is to say, they was whooping their behind and putting them to death. Now, I'm going to sit there and jump the gun in my own presentation and state why I stated earlier, right? About it seems to be those who say that they are indigenous to this land over here and no place else in certain cases, right? That the shots that seem to mostly be focused against those who say that we originally come from this area over here, all right? It seems as if something in regards with the white man. Because if you're reading Black history and slavery in the Western Hemisphere, you're going to sit there and read about us raising up against the white man. But if you are saying you just disconnected and that you was indigenous, and unless you are speaking on some other aspect or platform about you rebelling against the Europeans when they was invading your land, you have to sit back and ask about that. Because you had the Maccabees that were Israelites. They were people of color that when they were fighting the Romans, when they were fighting the Greeks, the Roman historian spoke about Simon of the Maccabees rose up and sat there and was fighting against their oppressors. Tacitus, the Roman historian, spoke about the Israelite leader named Simon Maccabeus. You understand? So that's something we point out in that particular regard. The observance of Hanukkah, brothers and sisters, comes from the aspect of the Bet Zur battle when Judas Maccabeus and company, all right, went against Antiochus IV or Antiochus Epiphanes. Antiochus Epiphanes was a white man. So Hanukkah, not to be color-coded or racial, quote unquote, all the time, is essentially, if you want to put it in aspect of black and white, Hanukkah is a celebration of black people getting their things back that the white man done pillaged. You understand? In Ghana, the British took a lot of the things there and brought it over to England. And people were saying, should the people in Ghana get the property back? Yeah, they should. So with all of that going on, right? I'm asking, what is your plan to get your stuff back? What is your plan or your prophecy? Did you have any prophets of old, like the Israelites are saying Jeremiah was a prophet in the Bible? Did you have any seers? I don't like the word fortune teller or foreteller. Is there any advisors? Is there any elders? Is there any chiefs? Is there any princes? Is there anything? What is your culture? Is there a priesthood in such? Is there anything saying about what will happen to the future of your people that's indigenous to this place over here? Because see, in the Bible, it says in the prophet Isaiah that the Most High will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the end of the earth. So as Israelites, we already have a prophecy about us being scattered from one end of the earth to the other, and that we will be called by our God to go back home. That's part of our, for the lack of a better word, faith, but more so understanding and teaching. What is yours to get the people out of your land? Because see, in the Bible, it speaks about the Edomites and the other nations who took the land of Israel to themselves with disdain of heart. In the book of Ezekiel chapter 35 and Ezekiel chapter 36. And it says that they will be utterly destroyed. What is going to happen according to you to those who colonize this place here? Because see, in the book of Joel, it speaks about the nations dividing the land of Israel, and that the evil that Esau did to his brother Jacob, therefore Edom shall be cut off to the last man. It says in one of the other Israelite prophets by the name of Zechariah, right, that the Most High will seek to destroy all the nations that come up against Jerusalem. And while they stand upon their feet, their flesh shall melt away and their eyes shall go away while it's in their sockets. That's in the book of Zephaniah. So we already can see throughout Zephaniah, Ezekiel, Daniel, about the saints of the Most High being a nation of Israel, all right, receiving a kingdom forever and ever. And that the other nations, those great beasts that came up, shall utterly be destroyed by fire. That's part of what we're saying according to the prophets that we know of old. What are your prophets saying? What priesthood are you saying that you belong to? Is there a, I don't like the terminology personally, is there a school of thought? What is going to happen? What is the language if we are indigenous or autonomous to this place here? See, because as Israelites, we are able to answer such questions. Now, whether you accept our answers for such, all right, the Most High's will be regardless. You understand? But these are just things that we're asking in that particular regard. All right? I want to go into another part, if you will. All right? Oxford's Handbook of Slavery in the Americas. All right? And we're on page 158. Right? Page 158, and it says this. On the eve of the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War, 1780 to 1784, these four colonies together had about 880 plantations with 87,500 slaves. Now, Anglo-Dutch, Anglo is the English, Dutch, brothers and sisters, is Dutch from the Netherlands, right? The Dutch don't deny their role in the slave trade. The English, certainly out of Liverpool, where they was building slave ships, don't deny their role in the slave trade. In the video I'm going to put in the description, there are citations from people of indigenous to Africa, right, that say that they apologize for their people's role in the slave trade. Why will people out of Africa today, and even in the 1990s, apologize for their people's role in the Atlantic slave trade if the Atlantic slave trade did not happen? Why are you apologizing for something you didn't do? Now, may he rest in peace. The guy who helped formulate the Crips was a guy named Tukey. May he rest in peace, right? He stated he was guilty of help forming the Crips. He stated that he was guilty of leading black people astray. He wanted to sit there and basically try to get people to try to not drop your flag, quote unquote, but get people to want to sit there and look to a better way of life, a positive way of life, and take that same spirit of that gangster soldier, this is my territory, and use it for positivity. That's what Tukey in his later days was trying to get people to understand. Arnold Schwarzenegger had him put to death. Now, brothers and sisters, Tukey was charged with shooting people in the store. He said, I didn't do that. I didn't shoot those guys or that guy and that lady in the store, be they Chinese or otherwise. And he listed his crimes. I'm guilty of this, 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 and this, but that, no. So my point in emphasizing on that, if you look at Tukey, who wasn't at first the best stand-up individual, but then he conformed and changed his ways to a better way of life before he passed, before he was, as far as I'm concerned, assassinated. All right, whether you think of him as a good man or a bad man, even if a king gets put to death, that's still an assassination. I call the death of Tukey Williams an assassination because the man before his passing was trying to sit there and get people to do right, live right, be right. I think his appeals had all went out. So he was like, well, I'm already got life. But no, we couldn't have this black man influential to get black people to do the wrong thing, to sit there as a Crip leader, help start the Crips. We can't get him to be influential to make blood stink. No, let's take him out. Let's sit there and cause him to be destroyed. See, that was the white man Arnold Schwarzenegger. You understand? So now when you look at it, brothers and sisters, in another particular aspect, who are you batting for? What team are you on? When you're saying, oh, the Atlantic slave trade was a myth. African Americans are not African. Because we already read of people being brought into the Western Hemisphere as captives and slaves, slaying the oppressors. See, this is why I cited Hakeem Matabuti earlier saying, I'm not giving a white man a reprieve. You're guilty. You're guilty of doing business with Africans and capturing people and then beating up the Africans who did the capturing and enslaving, both the captor and the captive who were both black. Did you know that? That during the slave trade, they would hire black people to sit there and go and raid other towns and certain things to capture other black people, to bring them all to a certain place, and then beat up the guys who were doing it for the white man and then put them all in the slave ship. So the white man, in that regard, was it the friend to the first captive or the later captive? Every treaty the European made, the white man made with the natives, he broke. You understand? So, people brought to my attention about the aspect of a census that was taken in the 1790s, right? In regards to black people, colored people, freed people, and the terminologies and so forth. Now, for those of us who already understand what the Willie Lynch letter was about, it may have never been a person literally named Willie Lynch who, according to that document, went from his islands, or went from his plantations in the West Indies and went to Virginia to sit there and give them a recipe on how to deal with their slaves in the year said to be 1712. 1712 is when the Willie Lynch letter and speech is said to have been delivered on the Jamestown area in Virginia. So if you're telling me, if we ought to cite, for instance, the Willie Lynch letter, one of the citations in there concerning how white people think, and this is what was pointed out about George Bush in the Iraq War, is we focus on future generations. I want you to hear what I'm saying. White man focus on future generations. That thing that Bush did in Iraq, that was for his descendants later on to have that oil and that property and that commerce over there. So if you read the Willie Lynch letter, for instance, where the guy said to be in 1712, we focus on future generations, and then you're looking at the aspect of the census taken in the United States in the 1790s, that is future generations from 1712. So who's to say what was then deemed colored, black, Negro, slave, free, so forth and so on? You understand? So the first people that was brought over to the West Indies, as well as North America, was slain after they were made to have children. That's why when you read about the Willie Lynch letter, it speaks about the Negro family unit and about the man being humiliated in front of the woman so that fear can go into the baby. Because that first generation that came over was brought over, not came over, but was brought over too rebellious. So you got to focus, like he said, on future generations. And now we see in the year after the year 2000, people saying that we ain't come off with no damn shit, and that this here, without having your own set language, correct me if I'm wrong, is yours. The European Jews, we saying, took Hebrew and did what they wanted to do with it, such as adding letters, such as a vet, such as a vav, such as the kof, when it's just kaf. You understand? Matter of fact, such as the fey, when it's really only pay. Because when you look at the Hebrew in Psalms 119 in the Bible, right? There's only 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. So every quote unquote Sophite letter is an add-on by the European Jews. The Ka Sophite, Mem Sophite, Nun Sophite, Fe Sophite, Zade Sophite. There's no vet, there's no vav, there's no two kafs with a Ka Sophite making it a third. There's only one kaf. So this is just something we want to talk about for edification purposes. This is why when I speak, I say, yes, the Hebrew, though it is a language, has been diluted. It has been, unfortunately. But we're still able to name a language that's ours. What is your language if you're saying you're from here? Why am I sitting up there and getting into it like that? Because you have just given a pass to the white man. He's comfortable now with you. You understand? Earlier in my life, when I was a college student, and earlier when I'll be studying on my own, the Europeans or the whites will sit there. What's that nigga reading? What's your reading? Don't let it be a Hebrew book. The Jewish people around this, he's reading Hebrew because you're not supposed to read either deep English things, any English things, and damn sure certainly not a language of the East, nigga. Remember, it was against the law in North Carolina, for instance, to sit there and have a black person reading, and white people who were teaching black people how to read was incarcerated in North Carolina. So when you find people saying today, don't go to college, I have a problem with that. Our people already have black colleges throughout the South still. Why would you say don't go to college? Now, as a person who has a college degree, as a person who has taught in a college for 5 semesters, right? One of the things I want to point out, brothers and sisters, is this. Don't get a student loan. Don't be in debt to the people who run this, who truly run this here. All right? Don't be in debt to them. I implore you, please don't get a student loan. Get a second job. If you can't get a scholarship or a grant, Pell Grant or TAP or what have you, you can't get that, please just sit there and get a second job. Don't sit there and go for a student loan and then get upset when the degree that you get didn't work for you and you in debt. So now college is bad because you didn't take heed to the advisor before you get a student loan. They sit there and advise you. They tell you this interest is big. I'm not dealing in profanity, but you can kind of understand what I'm saying in that regard. You understand? That interest ain't no joke. Once it comes down to a student loan, I knew of a person who was $50,000 in debt due to a school loan. Well, is college really worth it? Well, you're the one who borrowed their money and signed your name, all right, on the paperwork and was okay with it. They told you how they are. Don't get a student loan, brothers and sisters. And don't listen to the people who say don't go to college. It may not be for everyone. College may not be for everyone. Trade school might be for some people. You understand? Some people do go to college, do well in it, but don't do well in other things. I'm not saying college is made for everybody. I'm not saying that as a person who has taught in a college and as a person who already has a bachelor's degree. I'm not trying to be a person selling college to the people. I'm not trying to be a sales rep, you understand, for CUNY or SUNY. That is to say the City University of New York or the State University of New York. I'm not trying to be a sales rep for them. I'm just saying, brothers and sisters, keeping it 100, don't get no student loan. And at the same token, don't frown on going to college and learning. You understand? These books you see me cite, those are books that come out of college sources. Some of our greatest, even immediate history that we speak about, done taught in colleges. You understand? Now, whether you agree with their philosophy or not, they have something on their resume that looks deep. Nothing wrong with that. Malcolm X has a college named after him. That's an honor. You understand? So, once it comes down to these kind of things right here, this is just something we want to point out. And lastly, in closing this out, is this, right? If you're saying that this is where you come from and no place else in certain cases, right? Then what are you saying about all the people in the West Indies? Like an image that you see here. These are not your ancestors or your brothers or sisters. They're not. The Negritos in the land of Brazil, they're not your people. Did not one ship go to Barbados and the other ship go to Virginia? Did not the same ship drop one off in Florida and the same ship drop somebody off in Jamaica or in Antigua? That's the difference between the Black American and the Black West Indian. So to collaborate earlier, when I spoke online with someone about this, right, I was told, well, brother, you seem to be talking about those in the West Indies, and I'm talking about those in America. Brothers and sisters, as a person born here, my mama from Brooklyn, my papa from Queens, my grandparents from Brooklyn, New York, my great-grandparents from down south in Texas, right? We Black Americans can learn something from the brothers and sisters from the island. Because I'm going to tell you something. When the average Black American out of New York gets his own room in Queens, Bronx, Staten Island, upstate New York, what have you, he's usually renting from a Jamaican woman. I know because I've done it. When we, Black Americans, usually get our own place, that deep job that we wanted in that place, in many cases, it's by the advice of a brother or sister from Jamaica or the islands in general. So Black Americans who are said by many West Indians don't buy houses. That's one of the things that West Indians say about Black Americans. Black Americans don't buy houses. They go from apartment and rooms. Black women in their own apartment. I got my own apartment. And Black men saying I got my own piece in my own room that I'm renting from somebody that come from Trinidad or Jamaica or Haiti. But you know what you're doing? And it's not a bad thing either. You helping that brother, elder, sister from Jamaica, Haiti, or Trinidad pay their mortgage. That's what you're doing. See, because they come from places that have, in certain cases, dirt floors, and they come to America and they get houses. And what we, quote unquote, Black Americans do, and I know because I've done it and I have no problem with it and I don't regret it, rent the rooms out from them in their basement. Rent the rooms out for them on the second floor. Have to share bathrooms sometimes when you're doing certain situations like that. How is it that they come from a place where they don't lose their accent, but here you are dwelling among a European man for your majority of your whole life, but you got to rent from them? I'll tell you why. Because we, Black Americans, became too comfortable with the white man. There's a reggae song that says you can't stay in a white man's land for too long. You understand? We've been too comfortable with them. We was okay with WIC, no offense intended. We was okay for those, though it's a high minority, with the welfare thing. There are sisters who saying, well, time to have another baby, got to keep getting this check on. We got too comfortable on that government assistance. See, the thing is too, when you look at those and our brothers and sisters and elders from the islands in many cases, the white man went back over here to Europe. See, when slavery was deemed illegal between 1834 and 1838 in the islands, many of them went back over here to Europe. Many of them went back over here into Canada or North America, but many went back into Europe. So, though the islands is not the way it could and should be, the violence level is unfortunately very high. We have to, as a people, stop feeding into the Europeans' quota. Saying that you are indigenous to a place that you don't have a native language in to speak is giving a white man a reprieve from stealing what's yours. Shalom.